Multiplying decimals. Please take a second just to review the steps of multiplying decimals on your notes. And then once you've done that, we can continue with the problems to actually practice those steps. So remember, if you are multiplying by a number that is less than one whole, your answer is going to be smaller. Our first problem is 12.1 or 12 1/10 times 40. Now, before we actually do the work for our answer, we need to do an estimation. That means we're going to round. Well, 12.1 can be rounded to 12. And then 40 doesn't really need to be rounded. It's already a pretty rounded number. So I have 12 and 40. I can multiply 12 by 40 and see what I get. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 times 1 is 0. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. So my estimation is 480. My answer is going to be close to 480. So now I can do the actual problem, and we need to show our work for the answer. The first thing I need to do after I estimate is set up the problem by lining up the numbers on the right with the longer number on top. That's just going to make it easier. So I'm going to do 12.1 times 40. And you'll notice that I lined the numbers up on the right-hand side over here so that all the numbers are as far right as they can go. That's going to make my problem a lot easier. So now I'm going to multiply as usual. Oh, just kidding. I was going to skip all the steps. I got excited. So my next step is to count how many digits are behind or to the right of the decimal in the numbers in the problem. And I'm going to write that number out to the side of the problem and circle it and come back to it later. Well, I only have one number with a decimal, and there's one digit after the decimal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write 1 over here, circle it, and come back to it later. Now I'm going to solve the multiplication problem, ignoring the decimals and multiplying as usual. So I'll go ahead and do that. 0 times anything is 0, so I'm just going to put in 3 zeros. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And 4 times 1 is 4. So I go ahead and add those up. Now this is when I come back to that number that I circled. I'm going to put the decimal back in the problem so that the answer has the same number of digits behind the decimal as the number that I circled right here. So I need one digit behind the decimal. In order to do that, I'm going to put my decimal right there. So my answer is 484, and you can see that's very close to what we had estimated at 480. Let's go ahead and try another problem. So before we actually solve the problem, we need to do an estimation. And I'm going to say that we'll estimate 2/100. We're just going to leave it as it is. That's pretty small. So I'm going to say 2/100. And then I can round 1 36/100 to 1. So it's pretty close to 1. I'll round it to 1. Now I'll go ahead and multiply. And I'll put this 2 out here because there's 1, 2 digits after the decimal. So I'll multiply as usual, ignoring the decimal. Now I'll look at this number, and I need to have that many digits after my decimal in my answer. So my estimated answer is right here, 2/100. Let's see what happens when we do the actual problem. So again, I need to set up the problem by lining up the numbers on the right. So I want all the digits as far to the right as they can go. So they're all lined up right here. They're all close to each other. Okay. My next step is to count the number of digits behind the decimals in the numbers in the problem. Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to go ahead and write 4 off to the side and circle it. I know that there should be 4 digits after my decimal in my answer. Now I'm just going to go ahead and multiply, ignoring the decimals. So 2 times 6 is 12. 6 times 0 is 0, but then I carried that 1, so I'm going to put that there. 6 times 0 is 0. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 0 is 0. And again, 3 times 0 is 0. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 0 is 0. And 1 times 0 is 0 again. So now I'm going to go ahead and add 2, 7, 2, 0, 0. And this is when I go back to the number that I circled, 4. There should be 4 digits after or to the right of my decimal in my answer. So I'll just count 1, 2, 3, 4. So in front of that 4th number is where I want to put my decimal. So my answer, clean that up a little bit, my answer is actually going to be this right here. Okay? So let's try some practice problems. We'll do the practice problems in the next video with some word problems.